This is the VOA Special English Technology Report. Falling prices are fueling growth in high-speed internet services, especially in developing countries. Recently, the International Telecommunication Union released its Measuring the Information Society 2011 report. The ITU, part of the United Nations, compared access, use, and skills in 152 countries. The report says South Korea has the world's most developed economy in information and communication technology, or ICT. Sweden, Iceland, Denmark, and Finland were also among the top 5 in the ICT Development Index. The index compares 2008 and 2010 scores. Saudi Arabia, Morocco, Vietnam, and Russia had some of the biggest improvements between those years. Susan Teltscher is head of the ICT Data and Statistics Division at the International Telecommunication Union in Switzerland. She says most of the growth has come from one source. Mobile broadband is now leading the growth race among the different ICT indicators, much higher than the other key indicators that we look at, like regular mobile phone subscriptions, fixed telephone, or fixed broadband. And the good news is that it's also starting to grow in developing countries. Mobile broadband subscriptions reached 872 million by the end of last year. 300 million of those are in developing countries. Ms. Teltscher says, if we can bring internet over the mobile phones, then we can really make a difference in terms of improving internet access also in developing countries. Falling prices are adding to the growth, she says, especially in the broadband area. The prices dropped by over 50% between 2008 and 2010, which is a very encouraging finding because this was primarily drops in the developing countries. Even so, the report says people in many low-income countries are still paying too much for high-speed internet connections. In Africa, broadband service for a home or office cost almost 3 times an average monthly income last year. That was down from 6.5 times as much in 2008. Also, there are big differences in broadband speed and quality from country to country. South Korea has Asia's 4th largest economy. Susan Teltscher says, if you look at what they have been achieving in terms of ICT development, it's actually higher than what you would expect given their national income. For VOA Special English, I'm Carolyn Presutti.
This is the VOA Special English Technology Report. A rocket designed and built by a privately owned company recently made history by bringing a supply capsule to the International Space Station. It was the first private spacecraft to carry out such a mission. The company, SpaceX, launched its Dragon space capsule on the company's Falcon 9 rocket. It was launched May 22nd from Cape Canaveral, Florida. SpaceX mission controllers celebrated when the rocket reached orbit and its solar panels deployed. 3 days earlier, a launch attempt was canceled at the last second when a computer found a problem with the engine. astronauts on the International Space Station used its robotic arm to secure the capsule. Later, they released the Dragon capsule and it returned to Earth. It landed in the Pacific Ocean after its 9-day mission. Charlie Bolden is the head of NASA, the American Space Agency. He spoke to reporters at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida after the rocket was launched. The significance of this day cannot be overstated, he said. The head of SpaceX watched the launch from company headquarters in California. Elon Musk compared it to winning the Super Bowl. He said there was so much hope riding on that rocket. There was tremendous elation, he said, when his employees saw all their work operating as it should in space. NASA has invested about $400 million in SpaceX to help it develop space flight technology. And the agency also has a contract with SpaceX for 12 flights to resupply the space station. NASA wants private companies to carry out operations in low Earth orbit. The agency wants to focus its attention on developing the next generation of spacecraft that can travel to asteroids or Mars. The Falcon 9 rocket brought more than 500 kilograms of supplies to the space station. SpaceX said the rocket also carried the cremated remains of 300 people. The part of the rocket that carried their ashes will orbit the Earth for about a year until burning up in the atmosphere. Among the ashes were those of astronaut Gordon Cooper and actor James Doohan. He played Scotty, the chief engineer of the Starship Enterprise in the popular TV and movie series Star Trek. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal. To learn more about SpaceX and the Dragon capsule, go to voaspecialenglish.com.
This is the VOA Special English Development Report. Food that has come in contact with floodwaters can sicken anyone who eats it. Water from floods may contain animal and human waste. It can also contain other pollutants like chemicals from agriculture and industry. After a flood, food safety specialists in the United States Department of Agriculture have this advice. Throw away anything that is not stored in a waterproof container if there was a chance of contact. Food containers that are not waterproof include those with screw caps, snap lids, pull tops, and crimped caps. Also, throw away boxes of juice, milk, or baby formula if they have come into contact with floodwater. The Department of Health in the state of Minnesota says you should throw away anything in soft packaging. And the Extension Service at North Dakota State University offers other advice. Do not save plastic bags of food even if boxes or containers inside the bags appear dry. Do not eat fresh produce from the garden if it has come in contact with floodwaters. To be safe, have the soil tested. And throw away screw-topped or crimp-topped jars and bottles even if they have never been opened. Glass jars and bottles of home canned foods should be thrown out as well. Experts say the containers cannot be effectively cleaned after a flood. Throw away damaged metal cans or hard plastic containers. Do not use cans that are swollen or leaking, or that are rusted or crushed. But food safety experts say that some unopened, undamaged all-metal cans can be saved. First, remove any labels. The paper may contain dirt and germs from the floodwater. Wash the cans with soap and water, and brush or wipe away dirt. Use hot water and water that is safe for drinking if they are available. Next, place the cans again in water and heat the water to 100 degrees Celsius. Boil the cans for 2 minutes. Another way to disinfect the cans is in a freshly made solution of chlorine bleach. Use 8 drops of unscented liquid bleach for every 4 liters of water. Use drinking water or the cleanest, clearest water available. Place the cans in the solution for 15 minutes. Let sanitized cans air dry for at least 1 hour before opening or storing them, and relabel the cans with a marking pen to list their contents and any dates when the foods are best used by. Experts advise using the cans as soon as possible. And that's the VOA Special English Development Report. You can read, download, and comment on our reports at voaspecialenglish.com.
This is the VOA Special English Development Report. Snakes bite an estimated 5.5 million people worldwide each year. Experts say tens of thousands of people die from venom poisoning. An untreated or incorrectly treated bite might require the removal of a foot or an arm. Each year, around 400,000 amputations are the result of snake bites. Last year, for the first time, the World Health Organization added snake bites to its list of neglected tropical diseases. This recognition aims to bring greater attention to the problem. Scientists know of about 3,000 kinds of snakes. About 600 of them are poisonous. These are most often found in rural areas in tropical climates. Asia and Africa have the highest number of snake bites, together about 4 million a year. Latin America and islands in the South Pacific follow. The highest number of victims are agricultural workers. Snake bites are also common among fishermen, hunters, and children. Many victims live in areas with poor or non-existent healthcare systems and where anti-venom treatments are often not available. Anti-venom is the only cure, but experts say anti-venom technologies and their use need to be improved. Problems include a shortage of manufacturers and the high cost of treatment. Also, there is a widespread lack of knowledge among local health workers about how to use antivenoms. The treatments can cause dangerous and even deadly reactions if not used carefully. Antivenom contains proteins from animals such as horses or sheep. The animals are injected repeatedly with one or more different snake venoms to produce immunity. The Lancet Medical Journal recently published a series of reports on snakebite prevention and treatment. David Worrell at the University of Oxford in England co-wrote one of them. He praised efforts by the WHO to establish common practices for the production, regulation, and control of antivenom. But he says more must be done. The authors say community education programs could help prevent snake bites by teaching people how to avoid them. They also suggest actions like providing protective boots to wear while working in fields and not sleeping on the ground. Also important is providing information about where dangerous snakes are most likely to live and when they are most active. And that's the VOA Special English Development Report.
This is the VOA Special English Technology Report. Hundreds of students from around the world recently gathered in New York City for the Microsoft Imagine Cup Finals. They came to present their ideas for using technology to solve world problems. Microsoft Education Director Susie Levine says the 9-year-old program began mainly as a competition to create technology. She says, when we realized that students really actually want to have a purpose for what they're creating, we introduced the idea of inspiring them with the UN Millennium Development Goals and suggesting that they use those for their muse. New sources for ideas this year included intergovernmental and non-governmental organizations and nonprofits. They can submit some of the technical challenges that they would like students to consider for their solutions. Microsoft says over 350,000 high school and college students registered for this year's competition. Judges chose more than 400 of them to attend the finals. Ms. Levine says several teams were inspired by current events, including floods last year in Thailand. A team from Chulalongkorn University in Thailand created a Windows Phone 7 application that allows you to broadcast your location to your social network of friends so that you can be more easily rescued. There were also ideas from Egypt, inspired by the revolution that overthrew President Hosni Mubarak in February. Ms. Levine says one idea was to use Bluetooth as sort of a Twitter equivalent, so that if the government shuts down the internet, you actually can still have a massive social distribution. Students competed in 9 categories. For example, in software design, the top prize of $25,000 went to Team Hermes from Ireland. The students developed a device for cars to collect information on road conditions, driving behavior, and traffic incidents. A team from Taiwan's National Tsinghua University won first place in the embedded development category. They developed a network of wireless devices to help plot the safest escape routes during a fire. Next year's award ceremony will take place in Australia. Microsoft has also announced a $3 million program to help Imagine Cup winners further develop their projects. For VOA Special English, I'm Carolyn Presutti. You can get more technology news and learn English on your computer or mobile device at voaspecialenglish.com. From VOA Learning English, this is the Technology Report in Special English. More than 700 business leaders, government officials, and investors gathered in Mountain View, California. They were attending the 3rd Annual Social Innovation Summit. Landmark Ventures, a financial advisory company, organized the event in December. It was a conference aimed at finding new ways to deal with some old problems, like traffic. Vehicle traffic is an issue that student entrepreneur Christian Brueggemann hopes to solve. His team, Graphmasters, received a Microsoft Imagine Cup grant of $100,000. The German team won the prize for its NUNAV traffic management system. Here is how it works. Drivers using the system send their current position and destination to the system's computer servers every 30 seconds. With that information, the central system can reroute all of the cars in a way that everyone gets his individual best possible route. Christian Brueggemann says tests suggest that using such a system could save up to 20% on fuel consumption and up to 50% on time spent in traffic. A team from Uganda was also invited to the Social Innovation Summit. Team Cypher 256 has developed a mobile app to improve health care for pregnant women in Africa, where maternal and infant mortality rates are extremely high. The mobile app is called Winsanga. It measures fetal heart sounds to help establish the heart rate, age, and position of the fetus in the mother. Cypher 256 leader Aaron Tushabe says the device is similar to medical tests that are costly. Team Cypher 256 also received a Microsoft Imagine Cup grant to help continue their project. For VOA Learning English, I'm Carolyn Presutti.
This is the VOA Special English Technology Report. Social media networks have come to play an important part in the political unrest in Syria. The Syrian government barred most media from the country after the unrest began a year ago. But that has not stopped Syrians from getting out information to the rest of the world. Many Syrians have turned to social media like YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter to help spread reports about what is happening in the country. Hundreds, possibly thousands of videos have appeared on YouTube and other social media sites in the past few weeks. With few foreign reporters in Syria, social media have become a major tool for telling the world what is happening. Many news organizations have had to depend on reports and videos from people they call citizen journalists. Emmanuel Esposti is a blogger in Britain who has been studying the use of such videos by foreign media. She says it is very difficult to know where a video has actually come from or who made it or why. In early March, Syria's deputy oil minister resigned to join the opposition. In a video on YouTube, Abdo Hussameddin had a message for the government of President Bashar al-Assad. He said it had, in his words, brought a year of sadness and misery to those you claim to be your people. He also said the government had deprived its people of basic needs and humanity and brought the country to the edge of disaster. Abdo Hussameddin was the highest official to leave the government since the unrest began. In the video, he urged other Syrian officials to resign. Syrian opposition activist Abdi Hakim Ijburi also knows about the importance of social media. He used social media to contact other opponents of the government. He says many of them wanted to hold protests like those that took place in Egypt and Tunisia. At first, we started using Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter to get a group of young people and activists together, he says. And from that group, we started organizing. In his hometown, activists started writing anti-government graffiti on walls. Abdi Hakim Ijburi says that as the protests grew, he was captured and tortured. He escaped to Lebanon like thousands of other Syrians. He says there were lots of people in his hometown that he did not even know were part of the opposition movement or sympathetic to that movement. In his words, if it hadn't been for the social media, we wouldn't have become united. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal. I'm Alex Villarreal with the VOA Special English Technology Report. High-quality systems used in video conferencing are called telepresence systems. The images are life-size, yet not truly lifelike. They lack the depth that people would normally see if they were in the same room together. But this could change in the future with new kinds of three-dimensional telepresence systems. Last week, we told you about a 3D system at the University of Arizona. Researchers can send a moving image over the internet and show it on a special screen in close to real time. People would not have to wear special glasses like they often need to watch 3D movies. The system uses a lot of cameras to take pictures of a person from different positions. Lasers reproduce the pictures combined into three-dimensional images or holograms. The image appears more realistic with the more cameras that are used and the more pictures that are taken. Howard Lichtman is president of the Human Productivity Lab. His company advises other companies on buying and using telepresence systems. Mr. Lichtman also publishes Telepresence Options, which reports on the industry. He says this latest development would have done wonders for the Star Wars movie with the famous Princess Leia hologram scene. The researchers in Arizona say their 3D system is still years away from completion. Even then, Howard Lichtman says it may have trouble competing with systems already on the market. Most telepresence systems are two-dimensional, but Mr. Lichtman says the images are very realistic. He says it is a 2D image, but it is clear and realistic. He says you would think you were in the same physical space with people who might be thousands of kilometers away. Howard Lichtman says prices for telepresence systems are going down as more people use the technology. A new $18 million project aims to create 11 telepresence centers for federal employees around the United States. The government is working with the AT&T company to save money and reduce pollution by reducing the need for travel. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal. For more reports about technology, go to our website, voaspecialenglish.com. You can also find our programs online with transcripts and MP3 files. And you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube at VOA Learning English.
This is the VOA Special English Development Report. Delegates from around the world have agreed on a new plan to end the worst kinds of child labor by 2016. More than 450 delegates from 80 countries approved the plan at the Global Child Labor Conference. It was held in The Hague, the Netherlands, in May, a week before the International Labor Organization released its third global report on child labor. The report said there are still 215 million child laborers in the world. 115 million of them are working in some of the worst kinds of child labor. These are often dangerous to their health and safety. The ILO notes that child labor is decreasing worldwide, but it is decreasing at a much slower rate than 4 years ago. The organization also warned that the global economic crisis could slow progress even more. It called for an increase in global efforts in order to reach the goals for ending the worst forms of child labor. Representatives at the conference talked about what actions need to be taken. Patrick Quinn is with the ILO's International Program on the Elimination of Child Labor. He says there is clear evidence of the kinds of policies and programming interventions that can be most effective in combating the problem. Mr. Quinn said these include governments working to end the barriers that stop poor families from getting education for their children. And they include governments putting in place the right education policies. Mr. Quinn says efforts to combat the problem must also be increased at the community level. He said the ILO is working with local civic organizations to change opinions about child labor. The ILO report notes that several areas of the world are making important progress. They include Latin America, the Caribbean, and South Asia. The least progress has been made in Africa. Mr. Quinn says world leaders will discuss the issue later this year at a meeting on the United Nations Millennium Development Goals. He says there is a close link between these goals and combating child labor. And that's the VOA Special English Development Report. Transcripts, MP3s, and podcasts of our programs are at voaspecialenglish.com. You can also comment on this and other programs, and you can join us on Facebook and Twitter at VOA Learning English.
This is the VOA Special English Technology Report. Call it medicine on a microchip. Researchers in the United States have developed the first wirelessly controlled device that can supply a drug directly into the body. A small chip is implanted under the skin. It contains the medicine, which it releases at preset times. The developers say the device could improve the lives of millions of people who take medicine for long-term illnesses. A company called Microchips began developing the device about 15 years ago. In February, the company released the results of its first successful tests in humans. The test took place in Denmark with 7 women with osteoporosis. Osteoporosis causes bones to become weak and break easily. The disorder is common among older people, especially women. Many patients have to give themselves daily injections of medicine. One type of treatment requires injections for 2 years. Robert Farah is the president of Microchips. He says many patients stop taking the medicine because of the pain and stress of the injections. As a result, only 25% of the patients will go through the entire 24 months of treatment. The microchip is a few centimeters long. It has small sections that each hold a single dose of medicine. Mr. Farah says the device has to be programmed with the times to release the drug. For osteoporosis, the physician will program the device, and the device has the ability to release a dose at a given time, every single day. For other diseases where the physician may want to alter the dosing schedule, they will have the ability to wirelessly reprogram that dosing schedule. He says doctors will be able to reprogram the device from a computer or even a cell phone. The 7 women in the study were ages 65 to 70. The researchers say the implants were just as effective as daily injections. And they say the dosage amounts were more exact than patients often give themselves. The microchips in the study held only 20 doses of medicine. Mr. Farah says it could take 4 years to design and test a version with the ability to hold a year's worth of medicine. He says the microchip may one day free patients from having to remember to take their medicine or give themselves injections. It may also be useful in treating other chronic diseases, including heart disease and multiple sclerosis. For VOA Special English, I'm Carolyn Prasuti.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Technology Report in Special English. American colleges and universities awarded about 1.7 million bachelor's degrees in the school year ending in 2010. 57% of those receiving degrees were female, but only 18% of the women earned degrees in computer and information sciences. Reshma Sajani would like to change that. She launched an organization called Girls Who Code in 2011. Her goal is to get more girls interested in science and technology. In the next 20 years, experts estimate there will be about 1.4 million new jobs in science and technology. But there is a problem. Reshma Sajani says less than 20% of women are actually going into these professions. So there is an enormous gap. The underrepresentation of women in the fields of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, called STEM, is a problem. Reshma Sajani says it is caused by a bigger social issue. She says girls and boys perform about the same in math and science, so it is not an aptitude issue. Reshma Sajani says we live in a society that sends messages that girls should avoid these fields of study. Girls Who Code has partnered with educators, engineers, and business people. 20 girls took part in the group's first program last summer in New York City. They learned how to build websites, mobile apps, and create business plans. Still, it is only a beginning. Reshma Sajani says if our goal at Girls Who Code is to really close the STEM gap, we realize we have to teach 2 million girls how to code in the next 20 years. For VOA Learning English, I'm Alex Villarreal.
This is the VOA Special English Technology Report. More than 350 students from 75 nations were in Sydney, Australia last month for the Imagine Cup Finals. This is the 10th year Microsoft Corporation has organized the competition. Each year, the company invites students to use their love of technology to solve some of the world's most difficult problems. Australian Prime Minister Julia Gillard welcomed the competitors to Sydney and congratulated them. We look forward to seeing the fruits of your creative work this week in years to come, she said. The world does have tough problems. We are fortunate to have people like you who have a passion to solve them. Enjoy the Imagine Cup. Microsoft's Daniel Lewin also spoke at the opening ceremony. He said programs like the Imagine Cup and the DreamSpark program that you've all participated in are the foundation upon which young entrepreneurs, students like yourselves with big dreams, can make a difference in the world. This year, more than 250,000 students registered for the Imagine Cup. 106 teams were invited to the finals. Pip Marlowe is with Microsoft Australia. She was especially pleased at the number of women competing. On July 10th, Microsoft announced the winning teams at its World Festival and Awards ceremony. A team from the Ukraine won the Imagine Cup's top honor. The team's Enable Talk software program helps people who are totally or partially unable to hear. It changes sign language hand movements into speech. This is done using special gloves and a smartphone application or app. The gloves capture the sign language hand movements and send them to a smartphone app. The app compares those images to stored hand language signs and plays the words represented by the signs. The Quad Squad team will receive $25,000 to develop its idea. A team from Drexel University in the United States won first place in the game design for phone competition. The Drexel Dragons designed a game to help students better understand mathematics. And Team Tang Thai from Thailand was honored for a game that helps teach young people about the problem of deforestation. And that's the VOA Special English Technology Report. Transcripts, MP3s, and podcasts of our reports are at voaspecialenglish.com. I'm Mario Ritter.
This is the VOA Special English Technology Report. Just how common is teen sexting? Last week, we reported on a new study of more than 1,500 Internet users aged 10 to 17. It found that only 2.5% of them had sexted in the past year. It also found that only 1% of the images might violate child pornography laws. That study came from the University of New Hampshire. But another new report suggests much higher rates. Both studies defined sexting only to mean sending or receiving naked pictures. Psychologist Jeff Temple is an assistant professor at the University of Texas Medical Branch in Galveston. He says, "We found actually about 28% of teens had sexted." Mr. Temple says reports from medical offices and school officials support that finding. One of the authors that will be on our paper with our data is a pediatrician, and he certainly sees this in his office. And from talking to school personnel and teens themselves, it certainly seems like it's happening quite a bit more frequently than the 1% reported in the New Hampshire study. He also says the behavior was the same for boys and girls. We found that about a third of girls had sent a naked picture of themselves to another teen, and about a third of boys had sent a naked picture of themselves to another teen. Sexting is not the only issue involving teens and technology. A recent online family report from computer security company Norton called attention to cyber baiting in classrooms. Marion Merritt is the company's internet safety advocate. She says, "Kids may engage in purposely taunting or teasing or harassing the teacher in order to get the teacher to have some kind of reaction or response that they then hope to capture on a cell phone camera, a video, and post online where people can view it." Now, this can be incredibly embarrassing and humiliating and damaging to the reputation of a teacher. Ms. Merritt says Norton surveyed more than 2,300 teachers in 24 countries. What we were surprised to learn is that 1 in 5 teachers globally knows somebody that it's happened to or has had it happen to themselves. The online survey also found that 70% of young people reported having had a negative experience online. 40% rated the experience as serious, including cyberbullying, cybercrime, or being contacted by strangers. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal. I'm Alex Villarreal with the VOA Special English Technology Report. Tens of thousands of people travel to Austin, Texas each year to attend the South by Southwest Festival. The festival is most famous for its music and film presentations. In recent years, it has also become one of the biggest new media events of the year. Last year, more than 14,000 people from 54 countries attended the event. It is the place to learn about promising new technologies. Margie Newman describes the event as a sea of Mac-toting, smartphone-obsessed, new media snobs on a mission to know what is next. Ms. Newman is a public relations professional in Washington, D.C. She made her third trip to the South by Southwest Festival this year. She said, "A lot of people call South by Southwest Interactive the geek spring break, and that's pretty accurate." South by Southwest Interactive has seen the successful launch of several products. It helped push Twitter into mainstream popularity in 2007. In 2009, a company called Foursquare launched its mobile networking service at the festival. The service lets friends tell other friends where they are by checking in using a mobile application or a text message. Foursquare's owners say they now have more than 6.5 million users around the world. Margie Newman says quick response codes were big news at this year's festival. The codes turn URLs and text into barcode-like images that can be scanned using a mobile phone or a QR code reader. She said it looks like a scanning device used in supermarkets, but it's a square. She said people aren't using QR codes for marketing just yet. But it was very popular at South by Southwest Interactive. Cloud computing and group messaging were also popular. The 5-day festival ended March 15th. Hundreds of events were planned each day. They included speeches by some of the world's leading technology industry experts, hands-on training workshops, and many group discussions. Margie Newman said, "South by Southwest Interactive is the place to be if you are into digital new media. You don't want to miss it." For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal. Transcripts, MP3s, and podcasts of our reports are at voaspecialenglish.com. We're also on Facebook at VOA Learning English.
This is the VOA Special English Technology Report. An American space company says a powerful new rocket should be ready for a test launch by the end of next year. The company is Space Exploration Technologies, or SpaceX. Its new rocket is called the Falcon Heavy. Company officials say it will be able to transport satellites or spacecraft weighing up to 53 metric tons into orbit. That load weight is double the capacity of NASA space shuttles. The space agency is retiring its shuttles after 30 years. Elon Musk is the chief executive officer of SpaceX. He says 53 metric tons is more than the weight of a fully loaded Boeing 737 with 136 passengers, luggage, and fuel. It's more payload capability than any space vehicle in history, he says, apart from the Saturn V. NASA used Saturn V rockets during its Apollo and Skylab programs in the 1960s and 70s. A Saturn V launched the Apollo 11 mission that landed the first humans on the moon in 1969. The rockets were removed from service in 1973, but they remain the most powerful ever built. Elon Musk says the Falcon Heavy will be the second most powerful rocket ever. He says it was designed to do more than carry satellites and other equipment into space. He says the rocket was designed to meet NASA's ratings for human flight safety. So it could someday be used to carry astronauts and other travelers into space. Mr. Musk says the Falcon Heavy could also be used for missions like carrying a robotic lander to collect samples from Mars. He says a mission like that requires a great amount of lift capability. The lander has to reach Mars and still have enough fuel to return to Earth. The first launch is planned from the company's launch site at Vandenberg Air Force Base in California. A launch from Cape Canaveral, Florida, is expected in late 2013 or 14. In time, SpaceX hopes to launch 10 Falcon Heavy rockets a year. It says the rocket should reduce launch costs to about $2,000 a kilogram. That is about 1/10 the cost of carrying loads into orbit on a space shuttle. SpaceX already has a $1.5 billion deal with NASA to use a smaller rocket to transport cargo to the International Space Station. The rocket is the Falcon 9, and the deal is for after the two last shuttles, Endeavour and Atlantis, are retired this year. For VOA Special English, I'm Carolyn Presutti. For more ways to learn American English and stay informed every day, go to voaspecialenglish.com from your computer or mobile device.